So this is another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast. I'm Jared.
I'm Brandon.
And coming off of the Royal Rumble, so much controversy, so much to talk about. The road to WrestleMania is only just a few days old, and yet we've got releases from the biggest of kinds. We're talking McMahon no longer in the WWE, craziness, and so much more, as we'll talk about it this week on the Heel to the Face podcast.
Fans celebrate with me from Rome to Rochester.
Bad election would be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
So this is another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Heel to the Face. I tried putting out a video this past Sunday or Saturday night. I'm used to saying Sunday. Saturday night at the Royal Rumble, but very bad internet inside the Dome at the America's Center, so I didn't get my video out there on my little pre-Royal Rumble video. So I'll make sure to know better ahead of time and be better for WrestleMania, because I'm going to be there as well in just about 65 days or so for Oh, it actually might even be less than that.
It's coming
55
quick.
days, something ridiculous.
It's like less than 2 months now.
Well, because the Royal Rumble came on the
insane.
29th, a late kind of Royal Rumble this year, near the end of the month. And then obviously WrestleMania returns back to the beginning of April from what it was last year. I think it was like April 10th and 11th.
And what do we got? Elimination Chamber in between?
We got Elimination Chamber in between. So far, so it looks like only one pay-per-view. Last year, obviously, we remember Fastlane coming in on like March 20th.
Yeah, that was a lame pay-per-view.
Like 14 days before WrestleMania, we remember talking about Fastlane literally being on the calendar later in the year than some WrestleManias.
Yeah, it was very odd, Fastlane last year.
It was like 14 days before WrestleMania.
Yeah, it made zero sense. But that we're not here to talk about 2021.
Yes,
We're here to talk about 2022 and in the Royal Rumble. And I got to get your thoughts on the Dome in St. Louis. What was the overall? How did it look? How did it feel in there?
So the Dome in St. Louis, they used about half of the Dome, which was expected. Very similar setup as they did at Legion Stadium. I did like that they went away from both what they did at SummerSlam and what we've seen with the Royal Rumbles previously, in that kind of dugout kind of entrance, where the entrance is like essentially most of the fans have their back to the wrestlers. They did that for SummerSlam, even though they don't have dugouts, and they did it for the two previous Royal Rumbles at stadiums in which they do have dugouts, in which a good portion of the fans are behind the entranceway. They're coming out towards, let's say, where 40% of the fans will actually look at the wrestlers that are coming out, while 60% will look at their backs while they're coming out. That's kind of how the baseball setup is, because they're coming out of the dugouts. It's like if you go to a baseball game, I mean, when they come out of the first base dugout, everybody along first base and the upper decks that go with that are going to have their backs to the wrestlers.
I got to ask you. So, I mean, I know they're not using. It's the old St. Louis Rams Stadium. If you're not familiar. How did it? I mean, walking up to it from the outside, did it look good?
They decorated it up. They put a lot of banners on the outside. They had a banner for each of the main event matches: the Grit versus It, the Universal Championship, the WWE Championship, the Royal Rumbles themselves. So they had big banners advertising those. They had all the light posts around the stadium had wrestlers, Usos, who weren't even there, Liv Morgan, Becky Lynch, the whole 9 yards, had their pictures on light posts around. I will say it only was in the area of the stadium, and it wasn't the whole city.
No.
I did see the Royal Rumble advertised on some billboards. But the WWE actually, they decided they decked the city out in WWE billboards, but they thought, how can we get more bang for our buck? Because Royal Rumble is only this weekend. Let's advertise this WWE Super Card game, that little digital trading card game.
Yep,
so
I've heard of it. Yep.
It was essentially an advertisement towards wrestling fans who they were in town. So there was permanent billboards. We're talking on Busch Stadium. We're talking all around town, from 5 miles out to downtown itself, that had these permanent, I want to say 9 or 10 billboards.
I will tell you,
for WWE Supercard.
On the digital side, a lot of exposure on the Peacock app too. I was talking to a friend of mine who is not a wrestling fan. He's like, "So I heard there's a Royal Rumble coming up," and I am like, when he said that, I was like, "Wait a second, you don't even watch wrestling?" And he's like, dude, it's been all over the place. Every time I go on Peacock, they're promoting it really heavy. So, I mean, not only from the physical side that you saw in the city, on the digital side on the Peacock network, they were pushing that pretty heavy.
And one thing they're pushing very heavy is WrestleMania on the concourse, because all of the traditional on the concourse advertisements are now gone. They're just empty spaces because there is no tenant at this Dome in St. Louis. all those spots were put in with a big WrestleMania signs. Like, so when you're on the concourse, whether you're using a restroom or going to get something to eat or whatever,
it was just really
they
bannered
put
up.
huge WrestleMania signage where you would see an advertisement on the concourse for an auto part dealership or something
So
local.
how did it look from? I mean, I don't know if you walked or like took the tour, so to speak, but like from what you saw, how did the stadium look inside though? Was it pretty well maintained?
It was your basic stadium. I mean, it was there wasn't cracks or bathrooms that were falling apart or anything ridiculous. It was no Oakland Coliseum.
No, it wasn't a dump.
But it wasn't a modern AT&T stadium or anything of that nature. Obviously, there's a reason why they don't have the team anymore. They took off for better facilities.
Greener pastures, yeah.
It seemed like a basic stadium.
Basic dome
Yes.
type of deal.
Nothing exciting on the outside. The dome itself had a pretty basic exterior. It doesn't really give off much of a stadium look outside of the banners and stuff that were hanging because it is attached to the convention center that is the America Center. So it's like one kind of huge property versus like a standalone dome. It's kind of like the convention center is attached to it. So they actually did WWE. They put the banners around the whole property. So you'd see the banners at what looked like an entranceway, but they'd be like, no, this is the convention center. You have to actually go in to where the dome entrance is. But they still decorated up like the whole property on the outside. It felt like a WrestleMania. I mean, the Royal Rumble card is one of my favorites. Obviously, we can talk about the disappointment we all had.
Or we can
with
talk about
winners
the pyro.
and the pyro incidents. But that is one thing, that you get from going there in person, and they definitely aren't going to give you that on television. Right before Becky Lynch and Dewdrop, I look over to one of the floor sections that was right below the WrestleMania sign, completely empty. My first thought was maybe there was a big fight. Maybe somebody was trying to...
Hey, this isn't Golden Corral, all right?
It is WWE fans.
That's
Come on
true.
now. So maybe there was a fight. Maybe
true.
somebody was trying to run in the ring. So I noticed security guards and other staff going around and touching all the seats and running their hands across all the seats. And we were kind of wondering, like, what's going on here?
Yep.
And then we noticed them start to lower the WrestleMania sign. They actually had to throw a rope up to the sign itself, attach it, and then kind of like pulley it down.
Wow.
So they were pulling it down, and as it was pulling down, sparks started to drop. To give off to anybody who didn't know, the sign was sparking and on fire. The crowd started chanting, "The sign's on fire."
Yeah, that's you and I were talking while you were there. I was watching it. I noticed something really weird going on, and then you mentioned, I was like, I haven't seen anything, and then I did see some smoke. And then I heard the fans. I was like, oh.
So they lowered the sign, which essentially blocked the view for a lot of people that were in like the 100, 200 level that had that view.
Luckily,
you know what I mean?
was that match, though.
Because they pulled the sign down essentially right in front of their, the sign is very big, and a lot of people were wondering, is that blocking some upper deck views? But I was like, no, it's up high enough like they do in the arenas that it's like banners. It's out of the view. But when you lower it down to eye level, it blocked a lot of views, which meant that if you were watching that match and you wonder, like, why is nobody into this? Because nobody was watching it, myself included. Everyone was looking over at the sign, wondering what was happening.
Yeah.
And to show you that, something indeed was happening. This wasn't planned. This was potentially dangerous. When Brock Lesnar won the Royal Rumble, everyone was evacuated from that area again in preparation. So they did use the pyro. So it wasn't like, just a minor incident. They got the pyro going. Nothing, not a big deal. Like, no, they evacuated the fans once again as a precaution. When Brock Lesnar won it, they didn't take any chances, knowing that it was indeed dangerous. And yeah, they cleared the section out before the pyro went off. So I guess, I was surprised that they had the pyro go off again, but at the time they cleared out the section. So I imagine if they couldn't have cleared out the section, I don't know if they would have had that pyro go off again and chanced it.
No, I agree. And I got to tell you, besides the incident mentioned here, the pyro was pretty good.
The pyro was pretty cool from, above that little entrance thing. I personally I will say one thing about going in person. Going in person saves me from having to see all of the computerized stuff. I'm not into that. I
don't like it either.
So like I noticed while watching a little on Peacock that there was like above that little contraption that covers the ring, it said Royal Rumble all along the top of it.
Yeah.
But it didn't. It was just plain. There was nothing there.
Yeah, no, they have a lot of what is it, like CGI, like computer graphics.
But they even computerize
like
things
like
to make it look not just like part of the entrances, but they computerize things to make them look like they're
actually there, but they're not.
I will say one thing, and it stinks that this was a bad incident with that sign, but thank you, WWE. Don't let this discourage you, because I went to 2 previous Royal Rumbles where there was not a sign. This was the first Royal Rumble that I went to that had a physical sign. The other were on the scoreboard.
That it was.
And if they put it on the scoreboard here, actually, I wouldn't have been able to see it because I was in one of the end zones where the major scoreboard there is. It's like in the end zone, but it's between the 100 and the 300 level.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like at mid-range there, and that's their main board. And I imagined it was going to be there, and they were going to point to it there.
Well, luckily they did not.
Luckily they did not. Kind of backfired on their behalf, but they could have CGI'd it. Obviously, nothing is against WWE. I wouldn't be surprised if they CGI'd the sign and pointed to nothing, but they didn't. They put up a real sign. It was a nice looking sign, had neon lights and everything. So good for them for actually having that. Other than that, a great time. I was obviously there only on Saturday.
Yeah.
I was in another city on Friday, which does kind of stink. We can talk, and I even thought about maybe coming out with like a little video on why I think Saturdays suck for pay-per-views. And I get it why they did it this time around, but there's just a few reasons that you can claim to. And then one is the atmosphere in the city is much cooler when there's a Sunday pay-per-view because you have Saturday as your pre. Let's just look at the Super Bowl, for example. Sure. The Super Bowl is on Sunday. Nothing else happens on a Sunday. That's why it gets such good ratings. That's why it gets such good attendance. Nothing else happens on Sunday. When are the parties? When is excitement? When is everyone gathered around to talk and to pregame? Saturday night, Friday night. So, with Friday being a weekday, sort of, Saturday night would have been the day that everyone's in town. I know I went to a couple New York City WrestleManias where I drove and I didn't come in days ahead of time, but I drove in on Saturday so I could get the big Saturday feel, spend the night. And then on Sunday, it turns a Sunday, which is a dead day for everybody, into an event because Sunday's dead. So I stayed around and was there on Sunday, and it was like a Sunday. It was like dead.
Let me ask you this.
So you only got one day to like party and have Royal Rumble all in one.
Aside from that, I mean, aside from all that, what were your high points, low points of the actual event themselves?
So the Royal Rumble, the card was great. And we all thought the card was great going in. I think the low point to me, we can talk about it, is Brock Lesnar winning. I'm a huge Brock Lesnar guy.
We know.
I'm a huge Brock Lesnar guy, and I was very disappointed with Brock Lesnar winning. I will say the one good thing they did about it is they had him come out at 30, because as soon as he came out, you knew he was winning. So by having him come out at 30, you only ruined the last 5 minutes of the Rumble instead of like ruining the last half an hour of the Rumble.
It was disappointing overall. There's a couple things. So I was reading some reports that were circulating that up until pretty much like the 11th hour, so to speak, Riddle was supposed to win the Rumble.
Yeah, I've heard Riddle was supposed to win the Rumble. I've heard
Randy Orton, I heard
Seth
too.
Rollins was supposed to win the Rumble. Randy Orton did, after the Royal Rumble go off the air, he did come back out and do like a curtain call. They played his music there quickly at the end after the Rumble went off the air. He did a curtain call for the St. Louis fans.
I got to tell you though, like I was texting, I was hitting up on the socials with different wrestling fans, just interacting during the show. And as soon as Brock dropped the belt to Bobby, I knew he was in the Rumble at that point. Like, it was, to me, it was a tall tale sign.
I didn't think he needed, and that's the thing. Like, I didn't think he needed to be, and he still didn't need to be in the Rumble. When he dropped the belt, he dropped it because of Roman Reigns' interference, because of the Paul Heyman. That's enough. See, what I liked, I go back to WrestleMania 34, and WrestleMania 34, you got two championship matches. You have the Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, heavyweight versus heavyweight, big guy versus big guy. You got that kind of Vince McMahon main event. And then you had Shinsuke Nakamura, who won the Royal Rumble, against AJ into that New Japan wrestling fan, smaller guy, more technical, more aerial main event. You had two championship matches that felt very differently. Yep. And that's what I want every year. That's what I essentially want for the championship belts themselves. Obviously, Bobby and Roman are very similar, but it's cool to have different stories. So to have Brock Lesnar, fighting Roman Reigns, we all knew that was coming, but it didn't need this. The Royal Rumble essentially is for somebody who is thrown into a championship picture who wasn't there before, who needs it, who needs a reason, because there is no reason.
Which Riddle would have been the perfect one.
Yeah, Brock and Roman have 100 reasons. They have 1,000 reasons. They can get there, and they could have even got there if Brock lost clean. There's so many ways they can get there.
It was so predictable at that point.
No, at that point it was very predictable.
It was like so predictable, because when the match ended the way it did, I was like, well, Brock just lost to Bobby because of Roman.
Yeah.
Now he's going to go to the demand that he's in the Royal Rumble, win that, and then take Bobby's title, and then take Roman's title.
And there's still rumors out there that it could be Drew and making it a triple threat match, which would, again, he needed to win the Royal Rumble. If that is still that's the plan. If the plan is to be Drew, Brock, and Roman, Drew needed to win the Royal Rumble because Brock already has the reason. Drew doesn't.
It would have been better with Riddle. This whole thing would have been better with Riddle because
like Riddle versus Lashley, obviously.
Yeah, 2 MMA guys. Then you got Brock and Roman. That's perfect. I am good with that. Riddle is so over with the fans right now. Every time he does anything, whether it's backstage, in the ring, everything he does, the fans love. Like right now, you're seeing this segment right now every week between Riddle, Randy, and then Otis and Gable. And I got to tell you, Gable is coming out of a shell. I don't know what it is lately, but Gable is showing a personality that I've been waiting to see. I think he's being himself. Like the whole thing, the whole shoosh. Yeah. Like I saw signs at Raw. I've seen signs. I saw signs on TV at the pay-per-view. Like Gable's starting to get over as well. But back to Riddle. I mean, Riddle right now, everything he's doing, he's so over. Why wouldn't you do that? The original plan was good. I mean, overall, the women's Royal Rumble wasn't that great either. I thought both Rumbles were kind of duds, in my opinion. They were pretty predictable.
The issue that you have is the women's Royal Rumble is full of too many part-timers. I don't know how long.
Part-timers, you mean one-timers? Once a year?
Yeah. So
what I mean?
I don't understand how they're going to keep this going forever. I didn't understand when they invented it how they were going to do a 30-women Royal Rumble with the roster that they had. And essentially, it is the same story every year. This was the 5th Women's Royal Rumble, and it is the same story. It is 15 active competitors and 15 one-offs.
That's the thing. And here's the issue that I have.
And then the Men's Royal Rumble had no surprises.
Well, here's the thing.
Except for Shane McMahon, which blew up in everyone's face.
Well, I think maybe that was agreed upon. Maybe they made a deal like, all right, you're going to make one last appearance in the Rumble. Boom, done. But here's the thing, getting back to both Rumbles. Here's one thing that I picked up on. There were 0 NXT competitors in any one of them.
Yeah, 0.
What the hell is that?
I mean, we've noticed with the NXT 2.0 that they have really done their best to differentiate the two. They've really made this a third brand. They've really made this affiliated, nothing to do with Raw and SmackDown.
Tell me this, though. Going back, let's say, before the whole Mickie James thing, if you would have said, oh, you're going to have an Impact wrestler, an active Impact wrestler competing in the Rumble over an NXT competitor, I would have said, not a freaking chance. How does that happen? To me, that's crazy. Like, you could have done away with, like the Madcap Mosses of the world.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Who the hell needs that? Like, I get you the Johnny Knoxville, Bad Bunny, fine. You can have 1 or 2 gimmicks. That's fine. Bad Bunny actually
I will say about Johnny Knoxville, I thought he could have lasted longer because he is not Drew Carey. He is somebody who's a little more durable.
A little more durable.
Why throw him out in 1 minute? He could have lasted a little bit. Not going to win the thing, but he could have hung around.
Speaking of leaving early, Omos. Man,
I mean, this guy picked Omos, and I told you before the Royal Rumble that it was going to happen like it does for Show, for Kane, for Khali.
Hey.
He's going to get the whole 8-man team up and have to take you out.
Here's the thing. When we talked last week, we can go back to the recording on that. I was going out of the box on it. I did tell you later on, which was not on recording, of course, and you can check the social media because I did put it out there. I actually picked Kevin Owens later on to win the men's, and I actually picked Bayley. Bayley never showed up.
Asuka never showed either.
Asuka never showed. Bayley's still injured, apparently, so Bayley's probably not back for another, I don't know, maybe she'll be back in time for WrestleMania is hopefully the plan. So I was disappointed there. I also was hoping that we get Moose because I figured if you're going to have an Impact wrestler in the Women's Rumble, maybe you get a men's competitor, and Moose would have been perfect. Moose kind of teased it with the whole thing with him and Roman Reigns playing college ball against each other. So that fell flat. I mean, if I had to give the slight edge overall, I would give the slight edge, just a slight edge, to the Women's Rumble because at least you got to see some, legends or legacy talent, so to speak. And the men's side, there was no surprises.
I'm not a fan of Ronda Rousey winning afterwards, for example. I was excited for her to come in. That was obviously the pop of the night.
Yeah.
That was the Edge coming out in 2020. That was AJ 2016. That was the pop for this Royal Rumble, was Ronda Rousey, for sure. Do I think she needed to win? I'm not as against it as I am Brock Lesnar's winning because, again, I think she's got a good story. She could get Becky Lynch a rematch because she never lost her title, and then, again, we'd have somebody else, Natalya, whoever, against Flair for the other belt. Have Hart and Flair, lineage versus lineage, and then you got Becky and Ronda on night number 2. Those are your 2 championship matches. I do understand that it is tough to bring back Becky and then have her lose right away.
Sure.
The same thing you said about Omos. How do you have him lose and still look strong? I don't know. So I'm not against Ronda winning. I don't think it's as bad as the Brock winning just because You have so many reasons. I mean, Brock left that match without the title, and then you're like, we don't need to see you again until WrestleMania, and we already have the match. Like, you could have came out on Raw the next night and said, it's official, Roman versus Brock for the championship at WrestleMania. We didn't need the Royal Rumble. We didn't need him to pick. You could have put that on socials on Monday. You could have had him not be in the Rumble, put that on socials on Monday afternoon before Raw even hit, that Roman versus Brock at WrestleMania is official. And nobody been like, why? Where'd that come from? We already saw it. It was enough. We have so much storyline. We need this somebody else to win the Rumble to drag this out for a little bit and kind of be like, who are they going to pick? You know, because obviously we already know who he's going to pick, essentially, right? That's easy.
Yeah, it's
so
kind
if
of
it was a
obvious
riddle,
choice, yeah.
if it was a riddle, we could drag this out maybe to like early March about like, is he going to pick Bobby? Is he going to pick Roman? Is he going to insert himself into the triple threat? Is he going to pick Bobby? What's he going to do? That's a little storyline. So that drags on a few Raws, like we're kind of seeing with Ronda. You know, is she going to pick Charlotte? Is she going to pick Ronda?
Well, I mean, it's not even.
Becky?
She's not really dragging it out that much. She's
going to drag it out till Friday.
Yeah, she's going to drag it out.
But still, the point is,
for two shows,
there's more
one
in it
each.
for a Kevin Owens. There's more in it for a Riddle. There's more in it for an AJ Styles.
And can I be honest? I picked Kevin Owens last minute because here's the thing. He just got a nice fat contract that WWE just signed him to a nice long-term deal when a lot of people thought he was going to AEW after his contract was expiring. So that told me he was invested. WWE was invested in him, and he was gonna maybe get a huge push because they paid him a lot of money. So when you pay somebody a lot of money, you kind of want to utilize them a little.
And to
bit.
show you how silly it is for Brock is that he's in the championship match at Elimination Chamber now, essentially showing that he didn't need to win the Rumble at all. He can get himself a championship match anytime he wants, even before WrestleMania. So he's not even waiting to WrestleMania. He's essentially. Who's he gonna?
Doesn't that
and it kind of defeats
hand?
the purpose too, because you're like, who are you going to cash in on with your Royal Rumble win? He's cashing in on both because he's going to get Bobby once and he's going to get Roman. He's getting both. So it's not even tipping like who's he going to pick. He's getting both.
Well, here's the thing too, and like Brock is so confident in having belt versus belt at WrestleMania. Doesn't it kind of almost tip your hand a little bit for the chamber? Where he's going to go in, kick everybody's ass, take that title off of Bobby, which would be awful, by the way. Why the hell you put the belt on Bobby? And he gets rid of it like in between Royal Rumble and Mania. It makes zero sense. But WWE does what WWE does.
I love belt versus belt matches for sure, and I think at WrestleMania it could be awesome. The issue we have here is it's a 2-night WrestleMania, and if this was a 1-night show where it's the best of the best for 3.5 hours, then a championship do-all match is great. But this is when you have to have 2 championships because you decided to make this an 8-hour show. You decided to make this a 4-hour one night, a 4-hour the next night show. So and you decided to sell separate tickets. So you decided to
here's the thing.
Essentially make it so that you have to have a championship match each night.
And then here's the other thing that it also tips WWE's hand where they're not going to make it an undisputed championship. Like you just said. Like you just said, there's no undisputed because what are you going to do? Are you going to make the only way you could get away with making it an undisputed championship is maybe on night 1. Somebody gets in the Fatal 4-Way or something, and the winner of the Fatal 4-Way faces, we'll just say Brock and Roman. They're the third party into the Triple Threat or something. Something you can make it along those lines. But realistically, you're not going to see an undisputed championship match. It's not happening. I don't know. I'm just kind of waiting for this whole brand split to end. I just want it to be one collective unit, but we'll see.
So Elimination Chamber's coming up, and we'll talk about obviously Shane McMahon in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to ask you, in Saudi Arabia, that's where the Elimination Chamber is on Saturday, February the 19th. Are they still pretty religious there in Saudi Arabia? Did that change?
I think they still do what they do. I mean, it's still
and Jeddah.
Still
they already hosted a WWE event not too long ago. I think it was one of the last big pay-per-views was in Jeddah, not at this arena, but in Jeddah itself. Didn't
they say this is a new arena?
This is a new arena, the
new
Jeddah
dome.
Superdome. And from what I've seen, it doesn't look like a stadium. It's weird. It looks like a big convention center.
Gotcha.
And it doesn't actually look, it looks very big, but it doesn't look. I think they're hyping it up a little bit bigger. It looks like a dome, essentially, on a big arena. It doesn't look like like AT&T Stadium or anything like that.
It's not. Yeah, it's not the Taj Mahal of stadiums. Or
yes, But I guess the question that I have here, and also this event is called the Elimination Chamber, which is a typical pay-per-view that happens in the month of February. So I guess my question is, so it's on a Saturday. It's using a traditional name without inserting another pay-per-view. It's not like we have to have the greatest something between.
The greatest elimination chamber.
They're using a traditional pay-per-view without adding another one. It's on a Saturday. It's still in Saudi Arabia. So the question that I guess I have is to WWE, if I can think of it, why has every Saudi Arabia pay-per-view been on a Thursday afternoon in the middle of a week when they could have been on Saturdays this whole damn time?
Beats me, man. I don't know.
I'm not saying I'm a big fan of Saturdays. Obviously, we just talked about it, like Sunday pay-per-views. But if you could have been on Saturday this whole time, because the greatest Royal Rumble or Super Showdown or any of the crown jewels have been on Thursday afternoons. So what I've been thought is that because weekends are very sacred and religious reasons, and because of the time zone differences, whatever, you have to have these on Thursdays. You got to have it occasionally on a Friday afternoon, but you can't have them on Saturdays and you can't have them on Sundays.
Changed, huh?
And then here we are. Oh, and by the way, too, you got to have a special event because what did I say before? I'm fine with the Saudi Arabia pay-per-views. I don't understand why we have WrestleMania, we have Backlash, but between the two, we got to have Greatest Super Showdown. Why can't the Saudi Arabia pay-per-view just be the pay-per-view that was going to happen that month? Why do we have to insert in, the middle of nowhere between Elimination Chamber and WrestleMania? We had to have Super Showdown. Why couldn't it just been the pay-per-view? And here we are. Yep. They're using the traditional pay-per-view. They're not throwing anything extra out there.
I got to stop you there. It's the answer is pretty obvious. Cha-ching! The McMahon family and WWE, they're just making a shit ton of money with this. That's what it is. It's all about the dollar. That's all it is.
If they could have been on a Saturday this whole time, I imagine the dollar, at least when it comes to the American audience, this would have been a little bit better.
Sure.
If they could have been on a Saturday this whole time, I guess I understand you're not making as much money by selling the Elimination Chamber and another pay-per-view. You're putting into once. But yeah, in this sense, this is what these Saudi Arabia pay-per-views in my eyes should be. They should just be, okay, the Elimination Chamber, that's fine. That's a Saudi Arabia pay-per-view. Because they're going to happen anyways. You're not creating more events. You're not creating another pay-per-view that doesn't need to happen. They were doing, like, in October, for example, this past year, we had Crown Jewel.
Yeah.
But it was the October pay-per-view. Okay. We're not having Hell in a Cell and then a week later, another pay-per-view. I mean, it all started with the Greatest Royal Rumble. I mean, a pay-per-view that's just like, what are you doing? You have WrestleMania, and then before WrestleMania, during WrestleMania, I'm seeing an advertisement for an event that's like, you're at WrestleMania. You paid hundreds and thousands of dollars to be here. Well, I got some news for you. In about 2 weeks' time, we're making an event that just makes this look stupid. So I'm at WrestleMania, and then I'm already seeing these commercials for a 50-man Royal Rumble, and then all these major matches, and it was like 6.5 hours long. And oh yeah, they had Backlash like a week after that. So you're like, well, one, it's hard for me to care about WrestleMania that I'm watching now, and I definitely am not going to care about Backlash that's going to happen a week later. And then obviously we know about how they kind of denigrated the Royal Rumble by doing that. It didn't mean anything, and the Royal Rumble's kind of gotten some of its luster back. But some of the records, like Daniel Bryan's records, still stand as the longest time in a Royal Rumble because that Royal Rumble was like an hour and 45 minutes long. So you got a chance to be in a Royal Rumble for an extremely long period of time.
I will say this. A lot of weird and, I guess, pardon the word, I can't think of a better word off the top of my head, but stupid stuff going on in WWE. And speaking of that, who got fired recently here? What just happened?
What is going on? Shane McMahon, literally, he makes his return at the Royal Rumble. All of a sudden, I'm reading all the sheets. It says this isn't a one-off. You're going to see him in the Chamber. You're going to see him at Mania. He's going to be a regular on Monday Night Raw, which I kind of was fine with. It's WrestleMania season. You see that kind of stuff. Thinking we're going to start a storyline with KO, maybe with Seth Rollins. And the next thing you hear, he's gone.
And that's why you can't trust the damn dirt sheets of the world. Oh yeah, he's gonna have a nice run here up until WrestleMania. Nope, he had a one-off. He got fired.
Well, I think the idea, if he got fired, because if it was essentially just a one-off, he wouldn't have been fired. He would have did the one-off. I mean, Johnny Knoxville didn't get fired because he's not really.
Well, he signed a one event contract.
So essentially, by him being fired, showed that he was planning to come back for a longer period of time, and they had to stop it. If he didn't plan on coming back,
we probably will never know for sure.
I mean,
I don't. Here's the thing. And that's a shout. That's a little. I'm gonna give a shout out to the dirt sheet community. That's why nobody buys your BS. That's just the problem. That's why, you know how I feel about the Dave Meltzers of the world. A lot of that stuff it's bullshit. It's garbage, and that's why you don't want to get your source from some of these dirt sheets of the world. The internet wrestling community, it can be a good place, but a lot of times that's not really a good place. It's a lot of misinformation out there.
But I mean, I still think the information is, in this sense, it's probably true. Like I said,
think
it's
it's not to me, and this is what Meltzer does a lot. It's fantasy booking is what he likes to do. Like sometimes he changes his own narrative. It's fantasy booking. That's how I've looked at Dave Meltzer. It's like, oh, what can what would Dave Meltzer want? That's how I feel about that. And that's the thing. Good for Dave Meltzer for making a lot of money. I know. I've heard other personalities call him out for his stuff. But hey, I give the guy credit. He's made a lot of freaking money over the years. So good for him. Yeah, to me, it's just overall, I just think a lot of misinformation out there. I do want to also add another piece in. The reason why I'm wearing the Balor shirt today is Finn Balor was not in the Royal Rumble. Was released out there. He put something out on social media. He's home. He's in Ireland. He got burnt out. He's with the pandemic, he wasn't able to go to the UK, so he went home. He went home for a few weeks. I think he's going home for a few weeks, from what I've been seeing. So a few weeks, he'll be back for WrestleMania season by all accounts. So it's that's why he wasn't at Royal Rumble, is because I think he was just fatigued. He wanted to go visit family with the pandemic. You know how it was for the last 2 years. He hasn't seen family, so that's why he wasn't there.
So look at the good parts of the Royal Rumble. A decent entranceway, with the video board and all this stuff for everybody to be able to see. And it probably looked better at home as well than the things they had in the past, like they did at SummerSlam. You had the WrestleMania sign there. You had a bunch of good matches, regardless of how the finishes came out. You had the Shield entrance for Seth Rollins kicking things off. Essentially, I thought, maybe that was given the hand that Roman was going to lose because he was the first to come out, but it was to save the Shield entrance. And the reason you have to save it is because if it came off first, you wouldn't even know. Is it Roman's entrance or is Seth? So you have to have...
Well done on that part, by the way.
So you have to have the Shield entrance. Good on Ronda Rousey coming back. Good on Ivory. I thought she had I loved her appearance in the Royal Rumble. 60 years old, and she came out. Loved the Right to Censor gimmick she was pulling out there. Loved Mickie James using the Impact song when she came out there. Bad Bunny, it's kind of strange. Another great appearance, but I will say from the WWE perspective, not the ovation you were expecting. Wasn't like WrestleMania, I guess, where you have the more Florida Cuban population. Bad Bunny came out. It might as well have been the same as Madcap Moss coming out when it comes to how many people were that excited.
Yeah.
I think, they knew about it. I mean, but we knew about Johnny Knoxville. But Johnny Knoxville got a pop. Bad Bunny did not, unfortunately. But Bad Bunny, the positive from that is that he did a great appearance.
Yeah, he
still
looks
looking good. I liked his appearance in the Royal Rumble. Unfortunately, I think he's got a concert the nights of WrestleMania, so he won't be a part of that. So he's going to have to.
We'll see. Who knows?
Yeah,
you never know. You never know what they could pull out.
Yep.
I will say though, again, I want to highlight that Bad Bunny, for what he is, and for what he's done, kudos to him. He's been one of the better gimmick performers and non-traditional wrestlers that I've seen in a long time. These celebrity appearances are usually not that great. They're just kind of meh. He's legitimately got in there. I would put him. I know some people would disagree, but I would put him second best behind Pat McAfee. And
I think the Raw after Royal Rumble was very good as well. It makes me think, man, how great Raw would be if it was 2 hours? Because if you watch Raw, especially the Raw after the Royal Rumble, you sit there and think if they cut out an hour of this crap and just
be good.
Kept to the good stuff, Raw would be must-watch television again if you made it 2 hours long.
Yeah, the 3 hours it's still too long.
The problem is you got to watch the beginning, and then you got to tune out, and then you got to come back in near the end.
Man, how did you know what I was doing? I do that for SmackDown, too.
Yeah, SmackDown's 2 hours, so at least that's better. I can actually probably watch a good full SmackDown, but Raw, you watch the beginning, you cut out about 8:45, you join it again about 10:15. If you shrunk that to 2 hours, man, all of a sudden Raw would be like reborn. If they shrunk down... If they made Raw 2 hours again, it would be the same as when they made Raw 3 hours, and they were like must watch all of a sudden.
I'll be honest, I did watch all of Raw this week. It was a good show overall. I thought it was good. I'm really enjoying the whole Chad Gable Riddle thing. That's fun. I think again, Chad Gable is somebody that WWE is maybe finally starting to do something with. They put the belts on him, so it's good to see Gable finally get an opportunity. And you know how I feel about Riddle, so. Not all booking is bad these days, but there's still some things that need to be worked on, as we saw. We're going to nitpick, of course, but we're on the road to WrestleMania. This is a good time of year.
And the producers, not essentially all the bookers, but the producers for all the matches at Royal Rumble were revealed. And to those, I saw Sean. It's Sean now. Sean, those are wrong. Shane McMahon was not listed as a producer And I'm not saying he didn't have any pull, and maybe that's some of the reason. Obviously, we heard people like LA Knight were in the back and others that could have potentially been in the Royal Rumble. And again, I'm not against Shane being in there. I essentially say he's fine with booking himself in there. He should have booked the LA Knights and the people as the other spots. Like I said, the Madcap Mosses of the world. Not to rag on him.
I know. We've been shitting on him for a good portion of the show. But it's like,
I mean, the Street Profits, they didn't need to be in there. I would have rather seen the Usos as individuals than the Street Profits. Street Profits are fine, but again, if it's in place of a specialty, I'd rather see somebody else.
And then obviously the other part that a lot of people aren't talking. I mean, I don't know if I didn't see it on Twitter as much. I haven't really been on the socials as much after Royal Rumble. But Kofi was supposed to be in longer than he was. There was a mishap there.
Yeah, I mean, which is fine. I actually was fine with that actually not going to plan because of the fact that he has got so many of those saves in the Royal Rumble that it was actually different this time to see him kind of pull off a save that didn't work out.
No, I wasn't upset about it. It wasn't like Stone Cold back in '96 where it wasn't supposed to happen. 96. We've
had a week and a half.
I haven't. I know. I didn't read. I haven't. I'll go back. You know what? Maybe in time for next week's show, I'll have the facts on that. But I think it's 96.
Okay. Well, so that's going to do it for this week's edition of the show. We didn't even really get to talk about CM Punk and MJF going for about 45 minutes on Dynamite. An unbelievable match on Dynamite. A decent Dynamite overall. Thanks to that match.
Well done. Well produced. Overall, if you haven't seen it, get to it. It was a hell of a show. It was like a 45-minute match. So
we'll find out this week who Ronda picks if she decides this week. Is it going to be Charlotte? Is it going to be Becky? We'll find out this Friday on SmackDown. We're about 2 weeks away from the Elimination Chamber. And again, we're less than 2 months away from WrestleMania in Dallas. They've already decided they're bringing back all the festivities to Dallas and how they're going to sneak in there. We'll talk some news about that, how a ticket to SmackDown and a ticket to the Hall of Fame could essentially be a ticket for a one-night extravaganza. We'll talk that next week and so much more, as this has been another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast.